Welcome to the YouTube edition of the Highland League Weekly Results Panel from the Press and Journal, where we'll be discussing all of the weekend's Breedon Highland League results and the result of the North of Scotland Cup final between Brora Rangers and Clachnacuddin. Now, this is taken from our main Press and Journal Highland League Weekly Monday highlights show, which features highlights of two matches, including that North Cup showpiece, as well as analysis of all the results, which you'll get here, but there's also a nice feature on Inverurie Locos Logan Johnston ahead of his move to Australia. To watch the main Highland League Weekly show, though, with all the bells and whistles, you have to be a subscriber to the Press and Journal website. You can subscribe to our sports pack at the moment for the low price of just £1 for your first 3 months. So if you'd prefer to watch over there, please go and do so. There should be a link below the video. But yes, if you just want to hear about the results themselves, then me and Callum Law, who I'm joined by here, are going to discuss them right now. The North Cup final ended 6-1 to Brora. Callum, about as comprehensive as you'll get in a cup final, but a fantastic performance from the Catacks.
Oh, an absolutely astonishing performance, really, in terms of in a cup final to win silverware in such an emphatic manner. I don't think it really gets any better than that. I know Stephen McCouse was saying he was annoyed about losing the goal near the end, but just a tremendous display in all aspects, really, from the Catacks. The way they started, the sort of tempo they played at, the intensity they had to their play, the way they sort of pressed Clach, suffocated Clach, and then when they had the ball, they moved it really well, caused a lot of problems, and it was so impressive. And I think Clach were the sort of unlucky ones in the sense that they had to try and deal with that, because I think most teams would have struggled to live with that, the way Brora played at times. And the thing that probably adds to how impressive it was when it's 3-0 at half time, it would probably be easy to take the foot off the pedal, but there was none of that at all, and they kept going. And if you look over all the highlights that we've just seen, if it wasn't for Joe Mallon, probably could have been a few more. I mean, it kind of seems funny to say it, but it's like, although he's conceded 6 goals, I thought Joe actually had a really good game with some of the saves he made. I think just everything about that Brora performance right through the middle of their team was just excellent. Like, when Clach did get the ball forward in the main, sort of Mark Nicholson and Michael Finnis picked it up, dealt with it, and it wasn't like the ball was necessarily sticking at the top end of the pitch. It was just wave after wave, and like Ali Sutherland and Craig McKenzie as his sort of two central midfielders thought were really good, and then the front four beyond that just do what they do. I mean, you could single out all of them for different reasons, but Shane Sutherland's probably the obvious one given his hat-trick. And I mean, everything he's been through, like, did his cruciate ligament playing for Cally Thistle May 2022, had various setbacks along the way, was released by Cally Thistle in 2023. He's then sort of, as he was touching on in his interview, had to sort out surgery himself, rehab and things, signed for Brora. Since he's come back into action last month, he's been really good, and that was only his second 90 minutes, so you'd think he'll continue to go from strength to strength, really, and Brora probably need him to as well, with Jordan McRae being out injured potentially for a wee while with his shoulder problem. But if Shane's got to be producing performances like that, then I don't think there'll be any problem in terms of goals or anything like that. It was just an excellent display, and his goals is only a wee part of it. Like, his link-up play, his hold-up play, the way he sort of uses his body and sort of gets in front of defenders, all that side of it was very impressive as well.
So we spoke about him before the start of the season, and the big question mark probably still remains, can they get him playing 90 minutes game after game after game? But I mean, as you say, at Cally Thistle, borderline with the playoffs campaign he was involved in, borderline a Premiership player, what, three years ago?
Two and a half.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, and it's like, even Stephen was saying in his interview there, it's like, was it a risk for Brora taking him in up to a point because it had been so long since he played, but at the same time, and it looks like a great decision now, it's probably outweighed by knowing the quality that Shane had, because, you know, he started off in the Highland League as a young boy at Wick, but really since then he's been a Scottish League player all his career, so you knew in terms of quality, provided he was able to come back, that they were getting a class act, and that's borne out on Saturday.
A word for Clachnacuddin now. Conor Gethin's after the game repeatedly emphasising the fact that yes, it had been a sore cup final defeat, it had been a heavy cup final defeat, but when you look back to where Clach were before Conor Gethin's came in, they've come a long way to be now contesting cup finals, where last season they were, down the bottom of the division.
Aye, I think I can answer your question there in two parts. I think that the thing that would frustrate Clach most about the weekend is not losing, but it's more the manner of it and being on the end of quite a heavy defeat, because they weren't able to show what they've been about this season. Like they have in the league, they have kept quite a lot of clean sheets. They were leapfrogged on Saturday, but at kick-off on Saturday they were sitting 5th in the Highland League, and they have definitely improved, and they've shown good signs in the league and getting to the cup final. But the manner of that defeat on Saturday probably shows again that when they come up against the top teams at their very best, there is that bit more of a gap to bridge. However, I think the big hope, if you're a Clach supporter going forward, is that what happened on Saturday doesn't derail what has been a very positive sort of first 3 months of the season, because they've already surpassed their points tally in the league for last season, and second round of the Scottish Cup, reaching the final. It's all good signs. You just hope that doesn't have a lasting impact. In terms of, I was going to say as well about the actual game itself, like you were always expecting Brora to probably come flying out of the traps, and I think for Clach, just losing that early goal takes the wind out of your sails a wee bit. The flip side, Brora are, it just sort of gives them the impetus, even more confidence to keep pushing on. And I think if they could really, it's easy saying it now, but really you'd have loved to, if you were in the Clach camp, to get through that first 15-20 minutes at 0-0 and hope that maybe the Brora's intensity, if they hadn't found a way to goal, would just drop off a bit. But obviously that didn't happen, and even at 1-0 you can stay in the game, but second and third in quite quick succession just sort of killed it. But again, give credit to Brora, that's what they do. I mean, they're serial winners as well. 7th time in 11 years they've won the North of Scotland Cup. In that same 11-year period, it's the 14th trophy they've won. And they're just, through their team, they know how to get the job done. And with the Highland League Cup to come, they're still in the Scottish Cup as well. There's a lot more for them to play for. And the last word I was going to say about it as well is, for the manager's point of view, Stephen Mackay coming back to the club this season to win the first trophy available to him is an excellent start. And I don't know, I'd imagine it might have happened given that the North of Scotland Cup started in the 1880s, but I'm not sure if there'd be too many managers who've won it back to back with different clubs, because he did it last year with Nairn as well. So that's another sort of wee impressive statistic in there.
If you've been around since the 1880s, then please write in and let us know if that has been done in the North of Scotland Cup before. Briefly there, we talked about the breed in the Highland League. There were 8 league matches on Saturday. We were at the battle of the bottom 2. It was Rothes against Strathspey Thistle, and here's how they got on. Okay then, first and foremost, a great result for Strathspey Thistle there, off the bottom now of the breed in Highland League on goal difference, the team that beat Rothes. Below them, the Strathspey Jags. The thing that struck me first and foremost during that game, Philip Franchak, great player down the left-hand side for them. I know we've talked about him briefly. That was the first time I'd really seen him, but I thought he was really influential in the game.
He was. He created a couple of goals and did a lot of good things. I think he's one where you have to give the manager, Ryan Essen, all the credit. I mean, you give the boy himself credit for being a good player, but in terms of him coming to Strathspey, you've got to give Ryan Essen the credit there, because he's a guy that I don't think many people within Highland League circles would necessarily been aware of or tried to sign. But Ryan, in his previous role with Callum Thistle, taking their 18s, had seen him playing for St Johnstone, got released in the summer, signed for Forfar, hadn't been playing too much, so Ryan managed to bring him in on loan, and he's played every game and been a standout in most games he's played recently for Strathspey. I think you look at their performance in general, very impressive, and some of the players that had coming back in, I think, made a huge difference, like James McShane, Josh Race, Paul Brindle, were all back in, and they added a lot. Not like James McShane, great, good experience, and always been whether in the middle of the park or at centre half's always been a pretty solid player for them. Josh Race is one of their sort of summer signings. It's done well, popped up with goals here and there, done well in midfield. And Paul Brindle, again, experience at the very top of the league and won the league with Brora and things. And when I just think if Strathspey can keep him fit and firing, he can have a huge influence on their fortunes this season, because he provides that threat, as we saw with 2 goals. And I mean, just all round sort of the day Strathspey have been looking for, a great day. I think as much as anything, the clean sheet will probably please him, because in recent weeks Ryan Essen has been bemoaning their defending and some of the goals they were losing, so to shut Rothes out as well is another encouraging sign. Off the bottom of the league, as you said, will give them a boost. And I think for them now, this sort of needs to be a platform to try and build on, to try and progress and stay off the bottom and try and catch teams for higher up the table as well. And they have shown, when they get it right defensively, they can pose a threat. 6 goals on Saturday. They scored 3 against Nairn, scored 3 when they beat Lossy. So they have shown they carry that threat, and I think it is probably the defensive side of the game where they've been found wanting a little bit more this season.
Yeah, Daniel Whitehorn, he's on trial.
I'm not sure 100% what the situation is, because he was a signed Strathspey player, has been the last couple of seasons, but I think whether it was with his work situation and perhaps a sort of change of management in the summertime, that he maybe stepped away from it. But when they've been shorter bodies recently, he's come back in and played, and he's done well again on Saturday. Your commentary, you clearly liked the finish, but he's a player that showed when he was at Strathspey before that he was good. So whether he just comes in now and again or whether he sort of signs again, we'll wait and see. But he is a player that's shown he's up to the level, certainly. Yeah,
I only brought him up so we could show the goal again. On the other hand, Rothes, a team a few seasons ago that were up top 6, now at the very bottom of the division, things aren't going well at all, are they?
No, I mean, you mentioned a few seasons ago, and they finished 3rd and 5th, won 2 cups. Everyone knows about that. And that sort of very good team that they had, sort of, for various reasons, maybe started to get on a wee bit, or players left, and well, just about all of them have left now. But that team sort of was gradually broken up. But even more recent times, at the end of 2022, 23, I think they finished 9th. And when Ross Jack and the club parted ways in January, they were 10th. But since then, it's been, at the moment, a pretty rapid regression. I mean, if you take Saturday's game for what it was to start with, I thought it's not just losing that game, it's again the manner in a game like that against a side below you. You know, if you could win that, give yourself a bit of breathing space at the bottom, but to lose as comprehensively as they did is really poor.
They offered next to
and
nothing.
The thing is I would say as well, and I don't like saying this, but there's, going by the highlights, once it went 2-0, it felt to me like there are certain players where the heads just went totally and they sort of chucked it a wee bit. And if you look at the goals, the first three anyway, it's so simple. I mean, the first one, they did a warning for a set piece before when Daniel Whitehorn headed wide when he probably should have scored. And then the first one, James McShane, so easy, free kick into the box, tap it in. The second one, Philip Franchuk, it's too easy for him to just sort of make his way down the flank and set up Daniel Whitehorn. And the third one, some folk might argue, is it a penalty, is it not? But just needless, giving the referee a decision to make when it was sort of off the ball. The other thing as well is, aside from that, is the ball actually ended up in the net anyway when he blew for the penalty. And I do think with the retake, he's right. Martin McKinnon's feet are both off the line, so as much as that was maybe seen as harsh on the Speysiders, was the right decision. And I just think that losing goals the way they did is worrying for Rothes. And yeah, like end of last season, they had a lot of players missing with injury and different things, and they've still players this season like Ben Johnston, Alan McKenzie, Greg Morrison, that haven't featured really almost at all for a couple of injuries and other issues. And Gregor McDonald signed, and now he's away down south with his work and things. That isn't helping, but at the same time, I think the players in that squad on Saturday's evidence, they weren't up to standard, or they didn't, or Richard Hastings wasn't able to get out of them what he was looking for, certainly. And it is worrying for Rothes, because as much as it's early in the season, you know, it's a club that's been used to doing relatively well. To now find yourselves at the bottom with this, you could come at the end of the season and it could be like last season, and there's nobody eligible that's won the other leagues, there's no playoff, and you're fine. But nobody wants to run that risk of having to wait and see who wins the North Cally League or who wins the Midlands League to see if you're going to survive. So I think it's certainly for some Rothes supporters, there'll be alarm bells ringing, and it's been a tough run. Like, you look at this season, the last 10 league games, they've taken 1 point, and you throw in during that run, they've been beaten 8-0 twice by Forest in the North of Scotland Cup and by Fraserburgh in the Scottish Cup. And that's the way they're shipping goals is concerning. And over Richard Hastings' time, it's 3 wins and 4 draws out of 27 games, which I know they've got a young squad, particularly this season, and players that are new to the Highland League and things, but ultimately it's a steep learning curve, and they have shown in flashes, like you go back to that Nairn game, they won come back for 2-0 down to win. They've shown they can do it, but certainly in recent weeks they haven't been able to reproduce that. And the one last thing I would say is, just for hearing a few things and reading a few things, I take what I read on social media with a pinch of salt, but there was a lot of Rothes supporters saying that one of the players at the end was having a go at the fans for not backing them, which after you've been beat 6-0 maybe isn't the wisest decision, but I understand that emotions run high at the end of games, but that seemed a bit of a strange one as well to me.
Yeah, perhaps not the elephant in the room, but it should be addressed. Josh Race was sent off, as you'll have seen in the game, but thanks to our cameraman. Your guess is as good as ours about whether it was a deserved alleged elbow.
That was the script, and the man who did our report for the paper and the website at the game was in the stand, so I would imagine had a better view of it. But our cameraman's just sitting out a shot here, and he was all over the place. Didn't catch it. So there we are.
Okay, well, let's move on to another standout result from Saturday's Breedon Highland League fixtures. Forest Mechanics 3, Brechin City 2. The first game that Brechin have lost in the Highland League this season. Fraser McLeod put Brechin ahead, but Callum Frame and Jordan Alongi turned things around for Forest. Dale Robertson made it 2-2 for Brechin, having come off the bench before the break, but late on Aidan Cruikshank netted the winner. I do feel like these Forest names, Callum Frame, Jordan Alongi and Aidan Cruikshank, are becoming very familiar, which suggests that they're, well, with my in-depth Highland League knowledge, that they're scoring every week and they're being influential every week at the moment.
Well, certainly, Aidan Cruikshank's been in and out of the team a wee bit more, but Callum Frame is a player again who just seems to be blossoming a wee bit at Mossett Park, and sort of came in last season and he's grown and he's a real handful with sort of pace and directness in forward areas, and he's shown he's got a good eye for goal. Jordan Alongi played a couple of games for Rothes and things, and then has ended up moving to Forest, and he's done really well. He's been a big player in a lot of games for them, and Aidan Cruikshank, I'm hoping we should be able to show you his winning goal now. This is what Aidan Cruikshank has in his locker, is the spectacular, really great finish to win any game. And the biggest thing with Forest is, you look at their last two games, they've beaten Brechin, they've beaten Buckie, last season's top two. Like, they've shown, okay, if you were wanting to nitpick, and people say in the future they want to get even more consistent, but they've shown this season on their day they can match anyone, they can beat anyone, they carry a real threat with those players in forward areas, and not just that kind of Matt Jamieson, Kyle McLeod, other guys like that have had good seasons. And it's just, I think, from where they were last season as well, okay, there's a long way to go this season, but it's a very impressive step forward. And I think we always talk about who's the entertainers. I think you'd make a case for Forest being the league's entertainers at the moment, because I don't think, whether they win or lose, I don't think there's a game they're ever involved in that's particularly dull. There always seems to be goals and incidents, and they put a team that likes to play on the front foot, and they've got their reward on Saturday, because it might have been easy a wee bit as well at 2-2 to think against a team that's top of the league unbeaten, that's not a bad result, and settle for that, but they didn't settle for that, they went and won it. On the flip side for Brechin, they'll hope it's just it's a blip and they respond in the right manner, but it's like uncharacteristic from them to lose 3 goals. But in fairness, we saw them, they were troubled last week by Brora as well, and Forest have managed to trouble them again on Saturday, so perhaps Patrick Craig will be looking for them to just tighten up a wee bit as they have been, or maybe other teams are starting to find the ways to carve out more chances against them.
That unexpected defeat for Brechin means that Banks's 3-0 win at Turriff United on Saturday, which moved them up to second, has perhaps pulled them close enough to Brechin again that you maybe think, is it back on for Banks? 2 from Michael Phillipson for them, 1 from Kane Winton with the 3 goals in their game.
Well, I think for Banks, we'll address the table. First of all, it's been a good sort of 2 weekends for Banks because Brechin and Brora drew last weekend, which was exactly what they were wanting really, because they both dropped points, and then Brechin have got beat. It's 6 points between the sides, having played the same number of games. So Banks ID, it does bring them back in again. Not that you could have counted them out at the early stage, but kind of did look like, they were going to need assistance here and there. It brings them that bit closer. Brora's a point further behind, but they've got 2 games in hand. So it's sort of set up quite nicely, and then Locos is 29 points. They're a wee bit further back, and then you get into Martins and teams below that. But certainly the top 3 looks like we, at the minute anyway, we could have a bit of a race on there. And for Banks ID on Saturday, when they had their spell where they got the first goal and were on top, they sort of punished Turriff and killed the game off quite clinically. Michael Phillipson's having an excellent season, 9 goals in all competitions for midfield, and he generally, I've found when you watch them, a lot of their good play, it goes through him. He's a big player for them and showed it again on Saturday. Turriff depleted at the moment in terms of players missing and things, but that wasn't offered as an excuse by Warren Cummins in terms of he felt they should have been able to defend better, but they're just having a tough spell of it, and I think it's 6 league defeats on the bounce, and it's one of those runs where they need to try and get a couple back and try and find a way to sort of arrest the run that they're on at the minute.
Fraserburgh 1, Inverurie Locos 0, Paul Young Cracker, which should be on screen right now. Was the difference between the teams? Sounded like overall the Brock were probably the better side.
I thought that was the impression I got. I mean, Paul, goal fit to win any game, a zinger along the turf for Paul Young. I think from what I've read and seen about this game as well, and I saw Fraserburgh, we had highlights of them in midweek against Martin. I think that's 2 games running where their back 4 and their goalkeeper have been very good and have sort of largely snuffed out the opposition, and specifically I thought in midweek Brian Hay and Kieran Simpson at centre half were excellent, and that's, from what I've seen of Saturday's game, that's the impression I got again, that and Inverurie did have a couple of opportunities that they couldn't capitalise on, but in the main I think Fraserburgh snuffed them out, and Dean Donaldson said he didn't feel Inverurie got close to the standards he was looking for, so that maybe tells its own story as well. And then on the flip side for the Broch, they found a way to score, maybe could have made more of their opportunities, but they're on a nice run again, unbeaten in 5 in all competitions, 4 wins and a draw, 10 points out of 12 in the 4 league games in that run, and they had a tough spell, but they're ticking away quite nicely, and they're a danger again to whoever they play, I would suggest.
Yeah.
I should add as well, actually, before I forget, we hope that Locos goalkeeper Zach Ellis is okay, because we heard he got stretchered off after a collision.
Yes, best wishes to Zach Ellis. Okay, on the subject of tight margins, for Martin United 1, Buckie Thistle 0. Similar one, this Paul Campbell's goal, the difference?
It was described as a good game for the neutral to watch. 2 sort of sides that we're used to seeing in the top 6. Buckie, obviously champions last season, going at it and quite evenly matched. Paul Campbell was a difference maker. I believe Johnny Crawford had a goal ruled out for offside, which I'm informed he perhaps wasn't offside. Now that we don't have the footage here to show you, unfortunately, but apparently
now it's been analysed.
Folk have analysed that he might have been onside. Then on the flip side, Buckie hit the post. I believe it's Fraser Robertson in the stages as well. So it's one of them. Maybe could have been a different outcome or whatever. But for Martin, have found the way to win, and they're on a really impressive run. The last 10 league games, just 1 defeat, which was to Fraserburgh, 23 points out of 30, and if you were doing like a form table for the last 10 games for Martin, would be second in that. And really, they're up to 5th now, and it feels like they're building all the time. Really, for them, it's just their start to the season that has hampered them. I think they lost 4 of the first 5 league games, and in terms of sort of being in and around the top 3, they're just having to play catch up because of that. But certainly now they're in a really good run of form. For Buckie, it's just felt a wee bit like they can't quite buy a break at times this season, especially in the games they've played. The 5 teams that were in the top 6 with them last season, and it's 0 points from 15, and likes a Saturday, I think they won it, hit a post, rolled along the line, didn't go in, and it's like another day that goes in and you come away with a decent point. And we've like seen a couple of the games on here as well. Banks AD, they got beat 1-0, was very little in that game. Brechin got beat 2-0, and it was probably 2 goals that they conceded that were of their own making. And it's just little things like that have seemed to have gone against the Jags this season, and it must be frustrating for them, obviously, when you go for winning the league to then not really being in that position this season. But I do still think they're a more than capable team on their day.
Okay, Huntly 2, Nairn County 1. Huntly 3 comebacks in a row now for them. Goals from Kazzy Murray and Gussie Grant, is that right? After Gary Kerr's...
Callum and Angus, to give them their proper names.
After Gary Kerr's opener for Nairn. But yeah, that's Huntly now. 5 games unbeaten. Goals in 7 consecutive home games for Angus Grant, we're led to believe. As well, I suppose it's one of those ones, isn't it, where if you're Huntly, you're showing that great character game after game after game, and ability to score goals and turn things in your favour. If you're Nairn, Ross Tokley, you very much get the feeling from him that he feels his team chucked it away, given how late Huntly's 2 goals were.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Huntly it's the cliche, but it's the never say die attitude at the moment. But I think when you're scoring goals like they have been, I think it always gives you that added confidence and belief, even if you are trailing, that we can get something out of this. I mean, Angus Grant, 18 goals and 16 appearances. I mean, that's quite the record. And I think, speaking to people over the weekend, I think a lot of folk at Huntly probably pleased to see Callum Murray scoring as well, because this season he's been a real live wire, a real handful in wide areas. And he might say himself, actually, he should have had more. I think he's on to 2 now for the season. He might say himself he should have had more goals with the chances he's had, but he gets into good areas and he can be I think Colin Charles said after the game, he was a thorn in Nairn's side, and that's just what he is. He's a sort of persistent menace, and got his reward with a goal on Saturday. And I think it's 4 wins on the bounce, and as you said, 3 comebacks on the spin, and through to a cup final. It's all pretty bright at the minute for Huntly. For Nairn, it's actually hard. I find it hard to know what to make of Nairn, because it's very sort of up and down from week to week, and even within games. And it's like Ross Tokley said after the game, for 70 minutes he was pretty happy with what they saw. I think Gary Kerr hit the woodwork as well at 0-0. So again, like what I was saying about Buckie, on another day, if that had gone in as well at 2-0, you'd probably when the stuffing's maybe knocked out of Huntly a wee bit. But again, Ross, I mean, excellent defender as he was himself, was frustrated with the goals they're losing, and they're just, it feels like they're searching for a sort of consistency of performance in all areas, because I mean, they've got a lot of good attacking players in the team, but maybe at times defensively is where they've fallen down and things. So it's just, I think, trying to get everything to sort of align for Nairn, because we have seen in games this season and in spells that they are a very good team. I mean, even just a couple of weeks ago they went down to Inverurie and won there. So again, like I'm saying, with a few teams, they are capable, but just hit and miss at times.
Yeah. Devonvale 4, Lossiemouth 0 sounded like a thrilling game, despite the scoreline maybe looking more comprehensive on paper. Adam Reid scored 2 goals for the Vale. Ben Hermiston and Jack Mitchell got the other ones. Reid also missed a penalty. The first goal was a penalty, wasn't it?
It was his second goal
was a penalty.
And then he missed he hit the woodwork with a penalty when he had his hat-trick.
Amidst all that, when the penalty for the second goal was given, Stuart Knight was booked, I think, for the initial foul, and then sent off after the ball went in for kicking the ball away, getting a second yellow card for that. And in the other goal, it sounded like Ethan Hopkinson was potentially man of the match for Vale with a string of saves at key moments, according to our man at the game. So yeah, I mean,
there's plenty going on, was there, at Princess Royal Park on Saturday? I think it's maybe simplistic to say, but the big difference between the teams, as much as anything, is Vale have players in their team who, when good chances come along, are capable of taking them. Adam Reid, 4 for a season now, Ben Hermiston 5, Jack Mitchell, who apparently scored another cracking goal, he's up to 8 in all competitions. And when you've got those type of players in the forward areas, that's what you need, really, to make the most of your chances. And credit to Ethan Hopkinson if he's pulling off saves. I mean, he's done really well for Anki 17 coming into the league this season. He's done exceptionally well, and I just think for Lossy, it's like it's probably felt for a while now, even not just this season, but like they're always searching for something or somebody in the forward areas to sort of get a few goals and get on a run. Like, they've guys who'll chip in here and there, but nobody has. And to be fair, they've had quite a lot of chopping and changes in terms of personnel as well. Nobody's ever really been able to get on a consistent run yet, and they couldn't take their chances on Saturday. I was going to say about the sending off as well for Stuart Knight, and I haven't seen it, but Stuart Knight's a very experienced player who I imagine will be disappointed with what's happened. But second booking for kicking the ball away is one of these funny ones, because you see it happen all the time in games and nothing happens, but then sort of maybe 1 or 2 in 10. So can something gets done about it? And Stuart Knight's been victim to that here.
Maybe he did, but
if
surely you should have just kicked it back towards halfway.
Aye,
for the restart.
I would like to see where he's kicked it, because if he's taken the ball and kicked it into the sea or whatever, then
fair play.
Then maybe it's justified. But I do always think when I see people booked or sent off for that, I'm kind of like, because it goes on umpteen times in games and very little's done.
Okay, one more game to discuss from Saturday's league action. Wick Academy 0, Keith 1. A late header from 18-year-old Brodie Alberts was the difference. I think Brodie Alberts would have been 4 or 5 years old the last time Keith won at Harmsworth Park, based on my maths, and the fact that I just couldn't be bothered looking up his actual date of birth to tell you the exact age he would have been. But it was 13 years ago.
February 2011, the last time Keith won at Harmsworth Park.
Didn't sound like a great game, to be fair, if you listen to Gary Manson.
In fairness, neither manager necessarily portrayed it as a classic, but the biggest thing is, for the Maroons side of things, when you get a late goal to win it like that, you don't really care, do you? I mean, the clean sheets have been hard to come by, and they'd been on I think it was 6 games without a win in the league, and within that, Keith did get through in the Scottish Cup, but to stop that sort of run was a big result for them, and maybe they got their break a wee bit this week, because last week, we spoke about on here, they were drawn with Huntly, which wouldn't have been a bad point for them, but they were bold and went for the 3 and got caught out and lost. And then this week, when for a lot of folk it's maybe seemed like it was petering out to a 0-0, they've gone for it, and they've managed to find a way to win, and it's a good 3 points, and Brodie Alberts has first goal for the club since coming in on loan for Martin is one he'll remember as well. On the other side of it for Wick, like Gary Manson's been saying for a wee while, that defending balls into the box, whether crosses from wide areas or set pieces, is an issue, and they're not defending them well enough. And if you look in the league, in 15 games, they've kept one clean sheet. And in games like this, it's that costs you, because there's been a couple of games this season, I think Wick have lost 1-0 at home, and it's like, if it's maybe not quite happening or whatever, if it's maybe a stuffy game, near the best game, if you're not going to win it, at least the old saying, don't lose it and take your point and move on. So that'll be frustrating the Scorries supporters, I would imagine.
Yeah, I feel for Keith's bus driver on the way back down the road. I'm sure that was traumatic. Anyway, let's have a look at the Breedon Highland League standings as they are now. That's it then, all of the results from the North Cup and Breedon Highland League on Saturday covered. If you've enjoyed this chat, then please consider watching the full Highland League Weekly show going forward, which is available to subscribers, as previously mentioned, over on the Press and Journal website. You can subscribe at the moment for just £1 for your first 3 months via our sports pack, and that'll get you access at least every Monday to 2 highlights games, as well as regular features, and there's also some extra highlights in midweek that we'll be doing throughout the season as well. If you prefer to keep watching here on YouTube, you can do that as well. That's fine. The next time we see you will be the week of November 4th, because this coming weekend is a Scottish Cup weekend, so there'll be no Highland League Weekly. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with everything Highland League Weekly and Highland League from the Press and Journal by 2 methods. You can follow us on our various social media channels, but also on X and Facebook for both the P&J Sport and Highland League Weekly. You can also subscribe to our Highland League newsletter. There's a link below this video to do that, and that will get all of our content direct to your email inbox once a week. In the meantime though, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching, and we'll see you next time.